like you were playing in the middle of fields, you know? So it was like you'd bring all your stuff to the stage, and then it was hot as balls. Like you'd be sitting in the heat all day long, selling merch, signing stuff for people. Like I remember sitting there with just ice on my neck, and just, I mean, the heat was unbearable. And then you got to get up and play.
Welcome, everyone, to This Was The Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I am your host, Mike Doyle. Before we begin, if you want to help the podcast out, you can donate $1 a month over at my Patreon, which is patreon.com/thiswasthescene, and you can join all the other cool people that are doing so as we speak. Huge shout out to Omar Ahmed, who has donated yet again with a very generous donation, which he did on the website. You kick ass yet again, as you did this, I think in like 2019 or 18 or something. So thanks again, dude. That was fucking awesome. Crash Romeo initially started off as the band Centsless, and this was a Jersey band from Bernardsville, New Jersey, who used to play a bunch of shows with us, my old band Lanemeyer, back in the mid to late 90s in Jersey. They put out their debut album, Minutes to Miles, on Trustkill Records, and had it produced by Mr. Chris Badami, who's episode 2. If you haven't heard his episode, you can go way the fuck back to the beginning of the podcast and check it out after this one. Their follow-up full-length, Gave Me the Clap, was later released before they broke up soon after. This interview was a lot of fun because this is a band that we played with a bunch when we were a band in New Jersey, so it's very Jersey focused, and as the Senseless part, but then Crash Romeo is where they got on Trustkill and they started touring, so they had a bigger out of Jersey experience, but Senseless was the beginning part, so that's how we kind of break it up like that. So yeah, it's a super fun interview, and I'm really excited that I got Travis on the Skype, and this is what we chat about. The first Quarantunes, what it was like being in a band with his brother, being called Roma, getting signed to Trustkill, their photo shoot, Ryan Selleck, playing Warped Tour, their music video for Popular, Giving People the Clap, their gold record, and a ton more. Before we jump in, check out my animation company, drive80.com, drive80.com, if you're looking for an explainer video to explain what your company does in 60 seconds. If you're looking for custom Instagram stickers and you are a real estate agent, or if you're looking for a bumper, so someone just to animate your logo to put on the front or the back of your videos to give them a professional touch. Check it out again by going to drive80.com, and you can email me at mike@drive80.com if you have any questions. That's all I got to say, so feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who would love some punk rock nostalgia. With that said, let's get started.
I'm ready to throw a lot of people under the bus today.
Oh, God.
No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm just crossing people off.
Yeah, that's right. I was just doing some research, and I forgot, because it was Little Stevie, right? That's what we used to call him. But,
Little Steve, yeah.
I just found out that I wasn't even connected to him on Facebook, so I just sent him a friend request.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I haven't seen any of you guys in so long. I mean,
in years.
Yeah, I mean, really, just the Facebook group is so awesome because that's how I've just kept in contact with people, like, because I mean, obviously sending messages and stuff, it's like the new way to have a relationship with people, but it's like it's still cool because it's obviously I'm not, everyone lives so fucking far from each other.
Yeah, I know, right? It is awesome. You can see what everybody's doing and keep up with everybody.
Yeah, actually, the one thing I really want to point out, was it 2 years ago? Wait, when did Jay do the first Quarantunes? That May 2020?
Yeah, I guess it was like that first, like when it was really bad, when it started getting really bad, COVID, and yeah, I think it was that spring there.
I think it was May because halfway through March everything locked down. Then April everyone was home, and then Jay said, "Let me just do this thing," and you were the first person to play.
Yeah, it was great.
And so I'm down here in Raleigh, and my buddy Tom, who I've talked about a bunch of times, he lives down the street, and he's I've known him since for 20 years because of the scene, and we were texting each other, and I remember you started playing, and it's just how everyone was so hyped when you see everyone's like messaging when you're playing, like everyone's playing, and I remember like I messaged him and I was like, I'm literally like crying right now because it was so emotional about like there was something about it how you started playing. You sounded really fucking good, by the way.
Thank you, thank you.
It was
I
just,
was super nervous.
oh my God, yeah. I played the second one and I was like, this is so nerve-wracking, just
Oh
being
my
by
god,
yourself with a
yeah,
camera on you.
I
But
know, right?
like you started playing and there was just something about the state of the world and the way it was, and then how we all had this thing, which is obviously this podcast about, but 20 years ago, and then it brought us to like that moment of just giving everyone like this comfort and,
Yeah,
quote unquote sounds cheesy, but this like unity again, and it just felt that first one was like obviously the best one. It was just it was so magical, but like you starting it off, I was like, holy shit, this is crazy.
it was so cool reading a lot of those comments. Like after I was done with my set, I was reading some of them through, and like a lot of people saying, "Oh, this is bringing me back to like the good days when we used to like go to shows," and it just took a lot of people back to that feeling and that moment. And I thought that was like really cool for me. Like even if like people weren't familiar with like our like some of the songs I was playing or whatever, it was just the feeling of hearing some pop punk at that time just brought a lot of people back. That was like the coolest part about it.
Was it nerve-wracking to know that you were gonna be the first one playing?
Hmm. Very. I practiced like I practiced like crazy. Like I was just playing like the set over and over, and I kept I was asking my wife, should I play this song? Should I play that song? What do you think? She's like, play whatever you want to play. But once I got into it, it was a blast. It was so much fun, especially being the first one to do it. That was really cool.
Yeah, it was cool too because it gave us, because all of us, everyone who played, but everyone's in their home, and it was all these different settings. Like Brian from Plow, he's in his backyard,
Yeah, yeah, that
and
was cool.
it was just these different, like James, he had it set up where he was in his apartment, but he had it all lit up, and then fucking
Yeah.
Josh from Right Ternetti, he had it all set up. He had the kazoo and like everyone just
Yeah,
had
that
it.
was cool. I love that.
But it was cool too because it showed, from where we were back then, we were just kids and playing these Legion halls and hanging out in parking lots and diner parking lots and Dunkin' Donuts and stuff. And then a lot of you guys are with your families just in the background. And then that was just really cool.
That was cool. And it was just so great to see everybody, and like everybody still got it, which was cool. Like everybody could still rip playing, and everybody sounded great. That says so much about everybody that played in the scene, like how talented everybody was. They could still do it.
Have you been playing? Have you been keeping up for years after like the band finally ended?
Yeah, like I've always kept writing songs. Recently, my brother Ryan, who plays drums in the band, he approached me last year and was like, "Let's do another record." I was like, "Okay, like how are we gonna do that? Like we don't have any money, we don't have anything." And so we figured all that out and went back to Chris Badami at Portrait and just did 10 songs last year.
Just
So
did 10 songs.
just 10, just 10, nothing like that. So, we funded the whole thing ourselves. It was a lot of the songs that I had written, the last few years, and a lot of them that were just new, kind of on the fly. I would just, all right, I need to write like 5 songs for this record, so let me just do it. Really came out great. It was so much fun to do. We still don't know what we're doing with it, but probably the best thing we've ever done. But we're always very, critical of what we do, but like I'm just really proud of it. It came from a place where it was like it's for us. Like every time we did the 2 records we did, on Trustkill, it was we have to sound this way. Like I want to gear more towards this crowd, or it was a lot for that, and to do it for ourselves and not really have any expectations was really cool.
See, that's going to be a cool thing to talk about because I'm going to lead up to, I'm going to start with Senseless and then go into Crash Romeo. And then, like, because the two viewpoints of both those bands are so polar opposite, because in Senseless, you don't have any pressure on you. And then you're on Trustkill, which is a whole different thing. And then you're in that era where things were so visually like visually you had to represent in a certain way, sound wise you had to be a certain way, and you had to like play these rules and not really own it in a sense.
Totally.
Um,
Totally.
but one thing I want to point out is that even like I find when I pick up a guitar and I start writing, I I just automatically go back to this punk style, fast, and it's like, and I try to, I'm like, am I, is that baked into me? Or like, why am I still writing like this? And can I write a different way? Like, do you find, or did you find when you wrote this new record that you sounded a lot, or you started writing in the same style that you did, and you tried to like fight against that to make something different?
Yeah, well, it's funny because in my head, I want to write something different. I want to go in a kind of different direction. This record's going to sound different than the other stuff, and I kind of wanted to veer away a little bit from that style. But honestly, like you said, it pretty much came out like a pop punk record. So I really think it's just, ingrained in us, that whatever sound you grew up listening to, or whatever sound when the songs you've always written as a young kid, like I don't think that ever leaves you, that sound. But I think it's a good thing, like because that's your sound. It doesn't really, to me, it doesn't matter. It used to matter to me like what was popular at the time and like what we should sound like. But honestly, like what I think makes somebody make it and people really gear towards them is their own sound. That sets you apart from everybody.
Yeah, I think my nephew, I'm gonna start talking about Central soon, but my nephew, he's really big into that whole SoundCloud like rap thing where it's this moody. You ever listen to like Lil Peep? You ever hear of like any of his stuff?
I think so. It's on like TikTok and stuff?
Yeah, like he actually, he was like 21, I think, when he died of like a heroin overdose or
Oh
something like that.
wow, that's
But his,
awful.
I actually really, so Tom Martin, I did an interview with him, and he pointed that out. I was like, you should really check out these guys. I was like, that's so random that you would say that, and I listened to it, and I actually really enjoy it. It's like this weird, moody, something about it just like hits me. But my nephew, so his sound is kind of like that, but it's a little bit more popular, and but it's all about just this heartbreak that he's going through, and he's only like 19, 20 years old, and I'm listening to how like just the blame he's putting on this girl for ruining his life, and I'm laughing because I'm like, I can't connect to this shit, but it reminded me writing songs and listening to those songs back then. I was like, my God, I can't connect to this shit anymore.
Right?
That's all we wrote about. It's like, you fucking bitch, you ruined me, and it's like,
That's
oh
it.
man.
And everybody can relate then, because everybody was probably going through that at that time. But you're right. Like almost every band, like it was all about that. How
Oh
some girl
yeah.
screwed you over, and you know.
Yeah, it's like I almost wish there was bands that came out nowadays that had like a Ted Lasso feel where it's purposefully positive. It's just like
Right.
I'm gonna talk myself up in this song and like everyone's great, the whole
It probably
album.
would be big, I think.
I think this is the era where someone really needs to do that because people really want something positive. It's like shit's too dreary. So, all right, so let's jump back to let's go back to this is a very Jersey focused one, and then the Senseless is very Jersey, and then Crash Romeo. Obviously, you guys open up and you're touring and stuff like that more. Like, did you guys actually tour in Senseless?
In Senseless, yeah. Briefly. Like we did a couple weekend things, like with LWL, just like East Coast stuff, basically. We did one tour as Senseless down to Virginia and back in a 1975 Winnebago that we basically got for free. Steve's dad knew some guy and actually never forget going there to see it. It was all like had a broken window and the thing turn it on and it would smoke for the first like hour you were driving it. But it was really cool because it had beds, it had couches, it had a bathroom. It was awesome, and it got us there and back. So we can't really complain about it. But yeah, that was like we did like a couple little things, just East Coast stuff.
Well, okay, so but that's what I'm saying. Like the Senseless stuff's really gonna be like I don't know where I'm gonna go until we get into like Crash Romance stuff, but I think this is a very Like the origins of this podcast was solely Jersey based, and then it
The
opened up.
scene.
So
Yeah.
what I love about this is like there's so much Jersey love that'll be in this one. Um, so yeah,
Yes, definitely.
so let's talk about that. Like, how did you get involved in the Jersey scene? And then, was it because of the band, or did you start the band after you got involved in the scene?
It all kind of started back like I was in like fifth grade, and me and my brother started a band, and we were called Purple Couch. I was playing shows since like I was in fifth grade. Like we were playing. I remember my first show was at a bar in Summit, and my mom knew the owner, and he got us like a gig there.
Wow.
Yeah, and actually I didn't sing at the time, so I played bass. I didn't sing, and it was just me, Tom Duffy, who is Ivan Duffy's brother. You know Ivan
From LW.
from LW. Yeah, so it was me, Tom, and Ryan on drums, and it was all instrumental. And then things changed there, and then we ended up changing the name to Senseless. We were doing a lot of shows at Obsessions, over in Randolph. Like we were, selling tickets and doing that whole thing.
This is when you were in fifth grade?
Yeah, like fifth, sixth grade. Like
Jesus.
I was playing shows since then.
Wow.
And we were instrumental, and then we were like, you know what, we need someone to sing. So we tried out a bunch of people, and it was just wasn't happening. I was like, well, you know what, I'll give it a try. So like I had no clue what I was doing. I was going up there. I was probably really off key and just terrible. I just started practicing. I basically, would listen to like other bands and be like, I want to sound like this guy. Like, so I would just like try to, mimic these people that I would listen to, and then just practice, and, started getting better. Kind of how we got introduced to the scene was there was a few people we knew because we grew up in Bernardsville. So Basking Ridge, you had all the guys from Joystick.
Those bastards. Just kidding.
Those bastards. Actually, Dan Pence, he used to work at King's down in Bernardsville. And my grandfather owned a bakery. It was right next door to King's. We'd see Dan out there like on like cigarette breaks, and we'd be like, wow, this guy's like, he looks really punk rock. Like, let's go talk to him. Yeah, I remember he had like Liberty spikes and bleached blonde hair.
Oh my God.
And he was super nice. Like we would talk all the time. We told him like, we were in a band and we play we're starting to play shows. And I remember him saying like, oh, why don't you come check out like, my band Joystick? Like we're playing over in Berkeley Heights. I think it was Berkeley Heights. There was the Legion Hall or something there. I remember actually my first show I ever went to was, I think it was Millburn, the Millburn shows, church in Millburn. And it was like one cool guy. You guys might have been on that show. I'm not really sure. And then I think Bigwig was on there. But that's when we started like going to shows and stuff. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like there were so many people showing up.
What year was that when you started doing this?
Oh my God. So, well, Centsless formed, I think, in 97. So it had to be before 97. There was always a lot of shows at that church in Millburn. Like there was a lot. And it was a huge place. I remember it was awesome.
Yeah.
But so that was one way we were kind of like started going to shows and stuff. And then we started a side band, me and my brother, with this guy, Ron Morales. I don't know if anybody really remembers Ron, but he was really good bass player. The name of the band was Pound for Pound, and we were like a ska band. We like did like ska, but we didn't have any horns. We were just kind of like, I don't know, we were just kind of messing around. But he would throw shows in his basement all the time, and he lived over in Bernardsville. And I remember the first show we went to there was Joystick showed up, LWL. I think Brett from Joystick had a band with Ron called The Strangers that I don't think they ever did much, but they played here and there. And that's the first time I met Monkey, which everybody knows Monkey. I was sitting in a seat, and he told me to get out of a seat and yelled at me.
He's like a fucking bigwigs roadie, bitch. Get up.
Yeah, I tell him that story today, and he apologizes like every time I tell him that story. He's like, I'm so sorry I did that to you. I'm like you were, that was you then, whatever.
Yeah, you were a piece of shit. It's all right.
So like all these people we kind of started just getting together with, and we just saw how great it was. Like it was so awesome. And we wanted to do anything we could to be a part of it.
What did you like? so this point you're in 5th or 6th grade, which just blows my fucking mind. Because I remember you guys were young. I mean, Ryan, how much older is Ryan than you?
He's 4 years older than me.
Okay, because I always knew that he was older, and it was like about
Yeah.
4 or 5 years. So he's in like 11th grade.
Yeah. So like
Okay.
high school. Yeah.
That's what I remember. Because I mean, I remember at the shows like you were always young. I didn't think you were that young.
Yeah. I was in Senseless. I was a little bit older, so that probably was like, I think I probably was in high school at that point. Because Purple Couch we did for a few years. I think Senseless was kind of in high school because we also had Rich Ruffalo in the band
Yeah.
on bass.
Yeah.
And Rich was, yeah, I think so. I think I was like 8th grade, I want to say. Because I remember Ryan saying, "Oh, I met this guy Rich. He plays bass. Like he's really cool. Like he's got his own equipment. Like let's start playing." So I was like, okay. So we would practice in our basement at home. Rich had a lot of drive. He really wanted to. Basically, his parents would drive us to every show. We'd throw equipment in the back, and they would drive us around. Because I can't remember if Ryan had his license at that point. Probably, I think he was just getting his license, so we weren't even we couldn't even drive ourselves anywhere.
Like, were you guys when you're in school though? Aren't you surrounded by the other bands at this point? Like, weren't they all going to the same? So all of you guys were playing shows in there?
We went to a different school, so like Burnsville and Basking Ridge was different, and plus like the Joystick guys, they were a lot older than us. I remember I think I was in middle school when I heard their first demo. I forget what it was called, but I remember the front of the demo. It was a cassette tape, I think it was. And that was like one of the first times I started listening to like all the bands in the scene was when I heard that. The walk through the hallways and my day's not going well.
Yeah.
that honestly, that was like the first time I fell in love with the scene. It was like hearing that song. It was like, oh wow.
There were so many good bands. It was crazy too, because there was a lot of bands came from New Jersey and blew up. I mean,
yeah.
And then, but even the ones that didn't, they just had something to them where you listen to the song, you're like, fuck, this is they have a bunch of hits, or these are really catchy.
I know, right? I know. If you imagine all those bands, if they were on a label 10 years ago that was huge, those songs would have been everywhere.
I think some of the OCG stuff doesn't really hold up to this day. Just lyrically, I think.
I don't know.
It wouldn't really work. I think that Bill Cosby song.
Yeah, really I don't know. That could have made a comeback in recent years.
So you guys, you start playing shows, and so Senseless formed. You guys are playing, and I remember playing a show with you guys one time. I think it was in Bernardsville. I think it was the church. Was the church?
The church.
Was that the one that was in that dirt lot, that huge dirt lot, kind of on a hill? It was in the woods. Yeah.
That's the one. It was, I believe it was St. Luke's. No, it wasn't St. Luke's. St. Bernard's Church. That's what it was called. Yeah.
Was that the one where Joystick did the popcorn?
I think so.
Because I know there was 2 spots in Bernardsville. I remember there was a Midtown show that we played with Midtown at this one place, but I think that didn't have a stage. But then
there was another place in Far Hills. That was St. Luke's church in P-Pack or Far Hills. That was the other place. My brother, he put on all those shows.
That's right.
He did them all. He organized them all, and that was kind of how we wanted. It was really hard to get on a lot of shows as a new band, because we were willing to do anything. We'd open up whatever. So he was let's just do our own shows. That way we can play with these awesome bands. I'm like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I remember Ryan being the businessy guy.
Yeah,
not in a shitty way, but he was very he was how our Sean from us, he was our business dude. He would do all okay, you go and do all that shit. And I remember Ryan being that guy. He was always being hey, what's going on? What do you guys, it wasn't exactly, he was the one talking. You were kind of hey, what's up? You were more quiet, I felt.
I was the guy that hung out with all the fans afterwards. Everybody else would be drinking or whatever else, and I'd be hanging out with all the fans, talking to everybody, and he was more of the promotional, he's a great promoter. He still does these horror conventions today.
Yeah, I see that.
So like that stuff, like he was doing that with these shows, like organizing. He was great at organizing.
How was that though, as you guys being brothers and in so many bands for so long? Like, what was that dynamic like?
It's good, like we always kind of had the same vision of what we wanted to do, and like what our sound was going to be. And it's good in a way too, because we can tell each other off.
There we go.
Like if you're friends with somebody and you say the wrong thing, like they could never talk to you again. Like it'd be like it's over, okay. But like with him, we're brothers. Like we can say anything to each other, and we'll still be cool the next day.
Was there kind of a like, was there a point where he would just treat you as a little brother, and then that just finally kind of shifted to where there was a balance where it was like, I wouldn't say respect, but he would listen to you more? Because there's something about having a younger sibling where you're like, shut the fuck up, and they're like, yeah, you're like little. But then there's like this shift, especially from playing in bands for so long, where you have to find this. We're on like the same level now.
Yeah, I mean, it was never really like that with us. If anything, it was almost like I felt like the older brother a lot of times.
Here we go.
So,
Talk all the shit.
hey, well, he knows, But he never treated me like that. Like he always had, a lot of respect for, especially like what I wrote. I think that really put things in perspective. Like he's like, I think he thought, wow, like he can really write these songs and he could sing this way and he can play that way. I think that evened things out. It was never like that with us.
Was there like a certain band that you looked up to that was either in the scene or outside of the scene where you're like, this is like, I want to sound like this band or this handful of bands. This is like what I'm trying to go for.
Yeah, like I mean, in the beginning, like Face to Face was a huge influence for me. Like, hearing their record for the first time was like, wow, like I wish I could sound like this.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, like just everything about that band, I wanted to be like that. And then like later on, it got into like a lot of the other like poppy stuff, like like Newfound Glory, stuff like that. Like I always listen to like a lot of more punk rock stuff, like No Effects, and so like a combination of that stuff really. And I always had a respect for newer bands, like a band like The Starting Line. Like I listened to their first EP, and I was like, wow, like this is the way things are going. Man, if we could pull off something like this, it'll be huge. I always had a lot of respect for even newer bands coming out.
How many years was Senseless together before you guys flipped over to, like, you changed the name and became Crash
Um,
Romeo?
it was a while. I mean, so 97, and I want to say around 2004 we kind of flipped over.
Oh wow, you guys were Senseless until 2004?
I think so. I want to say yes, because we changed a lot of members. Like it was still me and Ryan, and Rich had left the band. We had Kevin that was in Jettison. He was in the band for a while on second guitar,
Oh wow,
and then
really?
we
I didn't know that.
yeah, yep. Kevin played. It was originally it was me, Rich, and Ryan, and then we added Kevin as second guitar, and then from there they both left the band, and then we had Steve. Who's in Crash is in Crash, Steve Anderson, or Big Steve as everyone calls him.
I just knew it was Anderson. I never knew. I know
Anderson,
Lil Stevie,
Big Steve and Little Steve.
yeah.
Even though Little Steve is taller than Big Steve, so I don't know. We'll figure that one out. So then it was Steve, and we had a few different bass players in between, and then once Little Steve joined the band, we were still Senseless, I believe. So even with the Crash lineup was originally Senseless, and then I think a year or two after that we decided to change our name.
So 96, 97, you guys start Senseless after being in another band. You can pick up Senseless. You're playing in the scene. So then you go over that hump, which I always talk about when the 2000 being that everything where everything just goes in a weird direction, different direction. So you guys are playing through that, and then like 4 years later, you're still doing it. So you're going through that transition, right? Were you guys in college at that time, or out of, like, where were you at that point in like 2000, 2001?
So 2000. Dude, thank you. 2002, me and Steve graduated high school.
So crazy.
So I know,
It's
right?
so
And
wild.
little Steve was a year younger than us, so he was still in high school. And Ryan was just kind of living the dream. Like he wasn't really he was working. He wasn't really going to school. We started play. I remember after high school, I started like community college. I was doing that, and then Steve was going to school at Hartford in Connecticut. So he would come down on the weekends and we'd still practice. So he would drive all the way from Connecticut every weekend and we practice, which was like a lot of dedication. It was crazy. So and we were still playing shows during that time. We kind of realized we needed to make a change in something because we were playing shows forever, same places. It's like, how many times can you play the same place over and over again? And the scene was totally changing at that point. I mean,
Yeah, talk about that because I mean that's when things were changing. We went from like Legion Halls, I feel started to die off, and then it became Clark or what was the Bloomfield
oh,
Cafe,
Hamilton and Hamilton
Hamilton
Street.
Hamilton Street. I was thinking Clark
Yeah,
Street because of Dave. Yeah, Hamilton Street, and then My God, Bloomfield
Bloomfield.
Cafe. That was like
Yes,
yeah, those
yeah,
were like the two spots then.
yeah. That was a lot of where a lot of people were playing. And the bands changed. Like we didn't have those bands anymore that we used to have. We kind of saw that we were opening shows like in the beginning for so long, and then we kind of worked our way up, and almost, I mean, it almost felt like we were like the last one standing from it. We weren't originally. I wouldn't call us originally in the scene. We came a little
No,
later.
I would say I saw that as you guys were like the last ones standing because all the other bands at that time, you had Chris, he went into Day at the Fair, Dave Flores does Clark Street, so everyone had their newer bands and they were trying to recreate the thing that they had with the other bands, and it was either kind of working or wasn't. But you guys like stayed the course through that, so I thought you were pretty much the OG ones.
I know we would say that. Gosh, we're like the last band around, basically. Like I remember the Youth Ahead. They were there for a while. Face First, which turned into Houston Calls. I mean, they were playing for a while as well, but they kind of changed a little bit. But yeah, like it was weird to see the change because, but in another way though, it was kind of cool for us because we were like headlining shows now. We were kind of the draw a lot of the time, and really wasn't like that for a while.
That's gotta feel kind of badass at that
It
point. That
was
you're like,
cool.
fucking A, it's about time.
And we had, our friends like that supported us, like they were great. Like they came to every show, like for all those years, helped us with equipment, merch. Like we had the best like crew of people around us. It was really awesome.
Did you know, like, was it kind of like a bummer though when you saw that the Legion Hall thing was going away and
Yeah,
everyone started?
totally.
Yeah.
It was totally a bummer. Like it didn't have the same feel anymore. It didn't have the same feel because then you had bands like bands wanted to make it big at that point. Like it wasn't about what it used to be about. It wasn't about just playing and having fun with your friends, and now it was about what label am I going to get signed to, or what tour am I going to go on. Like I remember like that around that time where we started to think about changing our name and stuff, like My Chemical Romance. They were getting really big, and I remember I think it was in Bloomfield. We went to a show in Bloomfield to see them. Line around the building. That was totally different to see than what it was before. You had a lot of people that weren't in that Nick community that we used to have in the beginning. It was just people from all over that just was into that band.
What were like the crowds like at that show in particular? Like when you would go in, was it like what was the vibe? Like, I felt like it just became, and I say this all the time, I felt like it became like a fucking fashion show.
Yeah, it did.
What's in it for me instead of what can I give back?
Yeah, it totally did. I mean, like I said, like bands, it was about how far can we go and how, which is fine, but even like the kids changed, as far as who was coming to the shows. You saw a lot of younger kids coming out than ever before, I thought, like with their parents and stuff like that. Like you'd see a lot of that. But yeah, I mean, it was just a totally different vibe than the original days.
Yeah, I think that's why I disliked a lot of the beginning of that scene change because I felt it wasn't. I don't know if it was some of the music. My ears were adjusting to this newer sound, and I was kind of like, all right, all right. But I think it was when I saw the AP magazine covers where these assholes were just like on there for
Yeah,
themselves. Like you could tell that it was
yeah,
about what's in it for me, what's in it for me. And I think really that was what I couldn't stand, and that's why I was so like I would despise so many fucking bands. I was like, fuck you, you piece of shit, for like being a vampire on this thing.
you're right. That's what it was, and a lot of those bands had that attitude. Like we always were used to helping each other out. Like you have a new band come along, and yeah, let's throw them on the show. Or for us, like I always felt like we looked up to so many bands in the scene. And it was like I always appreciated people helping us out, getting us on shows. And I don't think bands were like that anymore. Started not being like that anymore. It was all about themselves. It wasn't about really helping anybody else.
Did you feel like you were kind of abandoned by like the other bands that were there for so long, and they kind of were like, all right, peace out, and you're like, what the fuck, guys? Like,
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, I felt it was. I think that really. I think more so like for the fans because you guys like all the other bands like drew so many people out to these shows. That started to change. I think a lot of the fans like, well, what are we going to listen to now? all these bands, these great bands that are kind of not around anymore.
just blew up, just like internally, just like imploded.
Exactly. And in that result, like it was almost like a domino effect because then there weren't really shows anymore. Like you said, just like those certain places were doing shows. Like it wasn't people weren't renting out random like American Legions and doing shows anymore.
I mean, if you really look back at it, and that's after talking to so many people about that time, like I can kind of I pick out little things and kind of create this little formula of why it was, and it's almost as if it was the perfect. It was like the perfect storm of what that was, especially where we were, and it was great. There was all these different places around the country where they were all having their own scenes. But the thing I loved about just I can only talk to Jersey is the talent that was happening with all the bands was so great.
I know, right?
The
It
close
was.
proximity of how quickly you can get to a different town was like 30 minutes maybe. So you could meet all these new people where these new bands were. The age that we all were was perfect because we had nothing to fucking do but being like we were right in a lot of us were in high school or just out of high school, so we didn't really have anywhere to go. And so we were creating that, and then everyone's bringing all their own talent in, like the zines and the show promoters and all. And a lot of people went off and they either built off of that in their career or they stuck with that. But it's almost like this small time capsule really was the most perfect time for this to happen, and it really couldn't sustain for a long time.
You're right. It couldn't have, because everybody starts to move on with other things, which happens. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that timing was like it was perfect. I mean, especially in the music world, it was great. You had a lot of people were into like alternative stuff, but you had a lot of people that were into punk rock. The sound that came out of New Jersey was unlike anything else. I mean, you couldn't find that anywhere, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's almost like Jersey had its own sound. Chicago had definitely its own thing. Where Chicago really, it had just this. I was like mature, but they just every band was just its own thing there. Like I always looked at Chicago. I was like, wow, that place just. I always say it's there's something in the water there. It was so good.
Too, you started seeing bands coming from other states to play shows in Jersey. I mean that was amazing to see. Like I remember that band Shaft. Do you remember that band Shaft?
No.
They were from Texas. They were a great band, but they remember them coming playing a lot of shows. I mean that was really cool to see people from other states wanting to be even a part of what we were doing.
Yeah, it's like I remember Chris from Less Than Jake. I mean, they like Jersey was he to this day he's still like, my God, that was such a great place for us because he's like they loved us. Yeah, it was weird too because when they would show up here, we're in this Legion Hall in the middle of like Lyndhurst or something, be like, you guys wanted to come here? Like, really? You guys are
Right.
playing these giant clubs. You guys want to come here? Like, we get it, but that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of goes back to the question of you guys feeling abandoned because the thing itself set you up probably to look at it and say, "Oh my God, if we just keep doing that, this thing that's around us, this will always be here. So we can just keep doing this and it'll be here." And all of a sudden, it just one day you start showing up and you're not at a you're at a not at a Legion Hall anymore. You're at this club and you're probably thinking like where one day it really just probably clicks. You're going, "My God, this is just not the same."
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what happened, and then we started kind of conforming to that. We were wanted to get on bigger festivals, and we wanted to kind of get into that world a little bit more. Because everything was kind of dying out.
So talk about that. So then you guys make the transition to Crash Romeo, and I mean, I remember this was a big conversation because it was you guys did that, and then pretty soon after, you guys were on Trustkill.
Yeah, so it was I think it was Bamboozle Festival we played in 2000, 2005, maybe it was. I could be wrong about that, but around that time. Before that, we were like, we need to just shake things up. Like, we got to change our name. We got to just get people's attention more. We actually changed our name. We didn't initially change it to Crash Romeo. We were called Roma, which was a terrible name. I don't know what we were thinking. I think we were just maybe all hungry, wanted some Roma cheese or something.
I think it wasn't Rona. That wouldn't have held up very well.
No. So we were known as Roma for
Roma.
a brief period of time while we played Bamboozle Festival, and we were passing out. We had a new EP. We were passing out to people. We made new merch and everything. So that was kind of the start of things, the transition for us. We were good friends with Bed Light for Blue Eyes out of New Jersey. They had recently got signed to Trustkill. Great band. They were so good. Itchy, their drummer, was basically like, Josh from Trustkill, he heard your demo and he freaking loves it. We're like, okay, that's cool. We were still known as Roma at this point. We played, I think it was Hamilton Street Cafe. We had a show there and it was packed. We had a lot of people there. It was great. And Josh came out to see us that night and he was blown away by our performance. And we started talking to them about doing a deal, basically. The thing was, he's like, you guys got to change your name.
It's amazing.
So we were like, oh, we just changed it. Let's change it again. Holy moly. So we thought, I mean, everybody knows it's just so hard to come up with a name for your band. I mean,
oh my God,
it's the hardest thing in the world, right?
Yeah, fucking worst.
Oh my God. So, Big Steve, and we had a synth player at the time, Adam. Him and Steve would joke around about doing a comic book. They wanted to make this comic book called The Chronicles of Crash Romeo. That's basically how we got the name. We're like, wow, that's pretty cool. I like that. Crash Romeo. It sounds good. So we pitched it to Josh over at Trustkill, and he's like, I love it. Let's go with that. So that's how that all came to be, basically, with the name.
Was it when that happened though? Because there's a bunch of things I want to unpack there, as they say in the podcast world. Because I'm just trying to really open up anyone listening to your perspective at that time, and it's almost like when I look I'd mentioned my my nephew before, so he's a young kid, and the world looks differently when you're not even 20, because really you're relying on you're relying on everyone else for the shit that you do, so you can kind of sit back and chill and just either be really bored and just be like, oh, the world sucks, or you can be like, oh my God, I have time and I can be creative and do these things. But there's also potentially on who you are, you could see there's opportunity for you to go and grow in a scene or in a music thing if that's the direction you're going in. So for you, for being really just, you said you're out of high school at this point, so you're not jaded yet. I mean, there's probably a certain part of being jaded where the scene's changing, but still you're not in your mid 20s, late 20s where you're really jaded, because then there's a pressure of getting a job and or being out of college and stuff. So you kind of have this breathing room to do this shit. So you can kind of have that. This is the bubble that you're living in that time where there's not. It sounds like there wasn't any pressure on you to really make a decision about life.
Yeah, no, not at all. And that I mean, that really helps you blossom, as an artist and as a writer. Like when there's no pressure on you and you're just doing it, because you love to do it. That's when the magic happens. Or if someone breaks up with you and you're really pissed off and you want to write a bunch of songs, that's another way you can blossom.
Oh, that's the best way. I got 10 ways to tell you to fuck off. So it's like you're going, but that's where you are in this plot, this moment in time. And so you get to use that for your opportunity to be like, okay, I'm not exhausted yet by this. So when you have to change your name and then someone asks you to change your name again, it might not have been as a punch to the dick, basically, maybe.
Yeah, it wasn't because at that point it was like we basically wanted to do we jumped ship. We basically wanted to do anything that we could to further our career and get more fans and get more popular. And if that was all we had to do, we were okay with that. But maybe, high school me, it would have been different. Maybe I would have said no. Like this is the way it is. I think we all realized too, like we had gone through so much, like paying our dues, like just playing everywhere for the last like over 10 years, and just to get this opportunity was really big for us,
Yeah, I mean that was Trustkill was like, how big was that label at the time? It was a decent name.
They were big, the only thing was they were known for their hardcore music. They were known for screaming and a lot of hardcore bands. So that was the only thing that was like, well, this hardcore label wants to sign us, like, but what about all the pop punk labels? Do they want to sign us? But Josh, he really was a fan of us. Like that was like the cool thing. Like he really liked our music, and he basically said, I want to kind of start changing things for Trustkill. Like I want to start getting into more like pop punk stuff. Like he had just signed Bed Light, and they were more pop punk than a lot of the bands he had. But there was also a downside to that because a lot of the tours, we didn't really get offered a lot of tours that were, pop punk tours. We could get on a tour with a hardcore band, but being on a tour with a band like us was difficult because they didn't have those resources. So it kind of left us to do a lot of work that we didn't think we would have to do at that point. But
what do you mean?
Like, we basically had to find our own tours with bands that sounded like us so we could go, have those fans basically, so they really didn't help us with touring, getting on tours and things like that. So that was, I think, one of our downfalls, but hey, we really did get on some really great tours on our own with good bands. Like we did like Warped Tour. We did for 2 weeks. We got that ourselves. The Trustkill name helped us. That definitely helped us.
I mean, that's like, if anything, if a label's not going to do much for you, you basically just have to just utilize the fuck out of the name and just throw that in someone's face and be like, check this out. They're like, oh, that'll open more doors for you.
Yeah. But we still, from going back to the early days, we still had that mentality of we're going to do this ourselves. If no one else is going to help us, we're going to do it ourselves because that's who we were bred that way,
So when you guys get signed to Trustkill though, right? And they ask you to change the name, you're like, okay, cool. Like it seems like you were willing to play the game at this point.
Yeah, we were. Yes, definitely.
So like when that happens, like what was that transition like? Because they sign you and then they got to put you in front. So you guys, I mean, there's a lot of photos out there. Like you guys have like a shit ton of like photo shoots and stuff like that. And
yeah,
I remember when Chris started, when they did Day at the Fair and they got on Rushmore, which is a subsidiary of Drive Thru. Drive Thru was very like, okay, you guys got to do a photo shoot. And they basically, with Chris and them, they're like, we're going to dress you guys. And they're like, okay. So like that seemed to be the thing back then. They're like, okay, we're going to give you guys hair and makeup and dress you and photo shoot the fuck out of you. So like when all of this starts out, like what did that look like when they're like, they show up like, oh, were you just kind of like, okay, I guess.
Yeah, well, it was funny because that was the first time I ever wore makeup. Was our first photo shoot we did on Trustkill. Um,
Amazing.
so we actually, it was really a great time. We he booked a Josh from Trustkill booked us a session with Mark Weiss, who's this like renowned photographer. I mean, he took pictures of like almost every '80s record you can imagine, like Slippery When Wet.
Oh wow.
He took pictures at Heather Locklear and Richie Sambora's wedding. Like he was their personal photographer.
Holy shit.
Like this guy he's just like, he's done everything. And we walked into his studio and we're like blown away. Like we see all these pictures on the walls, like, wow, this guy is like awesome, you know? And it was down in Sandy Hook. We did it. And in his house, basically. And his wife did all our makeup. We could basically choose what we wanted to wear, but we had, at that point, we had clothing deals with a lot of people. So we had hardcore clothing was like sponsoring
Yes.
us. So like in those pictures, you'll see us wearing the hardcore stuff. And so we were also down that road. You know, we had a shoe company, Tuck Shoes, like they sponsored us, hardcore clothing. A lot of times we had to wear these things for the photo, which was fine. Like a lot of their stuff was awesome.
Did you hate that? Did you dig that at all? Or I mean, there's like a punk rock side
Yeah,
where you're kind of like, fuck you, like I'm punk rock, I
I
don't
know,
do this
right?
shit.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, I we really did like the stuff that they would send us. So I think that helped. You know, it wasn't like, oh, I don't want to wear this. Like this is like ridiculous. You know that. But image was definitely a thing. You have to sell your image. You know, that was something that we were never used to. You know, back in the day, like wasn't like that. But now it's like it matters what you look like. You know, it matters to the band, to the label. You know, which whatever. You know, it is what it is. But it was really a cool thing to take photos with Mark, and because not a lot of people get to do it. They came out great. It was definitely different type of thing, you know, doing photos for a label, you know, that are going to be in your record and in magazines and stuff.
Do you think that it became so visual then because I mean I have a theory that that's because of Napster and Napster breaking everything where you could download for free. The record labels are scrambling to find a way to really stand out a lot more because they weren't their sales were going down. So they went in this direction where they're like, okay, we have to get very visual and get our bands out there like in everyone's eyes for I don't know how that would connect, but
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like even like you mentioned AP magazine. If you were on the front of AP, you were the band, you know, everybody was listening to at that time.
oh yeah.
And that really started an image. Also like getting your album reviewed by these magazines was like could make or break you. And you know, a lot of times we had a certain member in our band that he would cause a lot of drama.
Anderson?
No, 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 no.
I mean, it really just narrows it down to like two more guys, really.
Well, we had Adam in our band who was who played synth, and we did end up kicking him out of the band because of this reason. Um, that you know he just created a lot of stuff that shouldn't have been there. We had a lot of people that would review our album that knew somebody that he knew, and it would almost affect that review.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so things like that, which we put an end to basically. But
I won't dig into that.
that's cool. We haven't spoken since I kicked him out of the band, so whatever.
I was wondering why, because on Wikipedia, and I'm not going to dig into this, but I was on Wikipedia, his name's not on there, so I was wondering about that.
Yeah, I think somebody took that off there.
Yeah, it
But
sounds like it didn't end well. Okay.
I mean, Adam was good. He had a lot of drive. He added a sound to our band that we never had before. You know, as far as the synth. But you know, in being in a band, you know, there's a lot of other things you need to account for, and we felt like we needed to save kind of our reputation at one point. So that was basically it.
So when you were recording the first record for Trust, because you did two.
Yeah, 2 albums. Yeah, it was actually a 3 album deal we had with them, but we only
Wow.
did 2 records.
Okay, so when you're doing Minutes to Miles, and were these songs already written, or did you have to write them on the fly for the label?
So we did a demo before Minutes to Miles with Ryan Selleck.
Oh yeah, I recorded with Selleck.
And Scars. So we
Scars,
did,
so
yeah.
good.
So basically, we did a 10-song demo. I think it was 10 songs. It might have been less than that. Basically, those songs got us signed. Like we had, I'm very grateful for Ryan and Scars because we had a lot of time to record with them. It was basically like, we want to finish this record and make it awesome. And that's we'll take some time and we'll just get everything solid. We had a lot of good songs there, and that basically springboarded us to getting signed to Trustkill. But Minutes to Miles, we took a few songs from the demo and re-recorded them because Josh loved them so much. He wanted a lot of those songs on that record. So it was only like a couple songs, but the rest of it was all written pretty quickly. We've always kind of prided ourselves on how fast we can write songs.
Yeah.
So that album was, we were kind of invigorated by getting signed. We're like, wow, like and a big thing for us was our album's going to be out everywhere. Like, cause Universal backed Trustkill at that time. They were their distro.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was the kicker for us. We're like, the distribution is awesome. So our record was out in Borders, Best Buy, like you could actually go to the store and buy it. And that was cool. Like, for us, that was it. With that kind of positivity we were receiving at that point, like that really springboarded us to like write some awesome songs. This was like our time to show like what our sound is going to be finally, basically.
Was there like a conversation when you guys were going to do the full length and you'd already done the demo with Selleck? Because I know Selleck, he kind of had this magic touch with a handful of bands. Like I know Armor for Sleep, he did their demos. I know Day at the Fair, he did their demos. I believe that was him. And I mean, so he would do these, but then when everyone did their full length, they would go to basically like Badami or like Nada or some other place. Was there a conversation you guys where you got signed to Trustkill, you already did the demos, where you were like, well, we could go to Ryan, or it was just no, we're not gonna like what? Why did you guys decide Portrait over going to Ryan?
So I mean, we really loved how that demo came out. And I think what it really came down to was the label. They wanted us to go to. I'm not saying that demo sounds awesome, and what he could do down there was amazing, but I think we just needed to go to like, especially for drums. Chris he's so good at what he does, as far as everything. He's a drummer at first, above all else, and that was something we really really wanted was that.
Interesting. Like, why did you guys focus on the drum sound? Like, why'd you choose that?
Well, we've been recording with Chris. Been recording with Chris since I was like 15 years old. Steve from LWL took me there the first time when they were recording. We started recording the first thing we ever did with Chris in his garage. So we've always had a really tight relationship with Chris. We feel like he's the fifth member of the band, like that was part of it too, was we wanted more of like a natural sound with everything, with the drums, with vocals. And we knew Chris could do it. Like and we had a relationship with him for so long. That basically was why we decided to go with Chris.
Okay. That is a big thing. Because I mean, that was the one thing I noticed. I was just revisiting the record on Spotify, and the drum sound is ridiculous.
Oh my God. He's great. I mean, Chris is just he puts everything into it, and he knows us so well at this point. Like I said, like he's like the other member of the band. He knows how I write. He knows how we want things to sound. I mean, I can't say enough about him.
He's so great.
Especially just doing this last thing with him, like these 10 songs. It was so great, like just to be back in the studio with him.
Yeah, he's just so chill. Like I've never. I mean, I remember recording. I always say this. So he's like, "Yeah, man, all right." He's always just so just like even keel about shit. Like I don't think I've ever heard a story about him losing his shit, which I'm sure he's gotten a point, and maybe internally, where he's like, "I want to kill all of these guys."
Yeah. I know he's the best. We have such a good time there, Like we joke about old stories,
Oh
and
yeah.
I mean, it's just it's awesome. We always order a lot of food for lunch. That's always a thing we do when
Oh
we're
yeah, that
there.
was thing. Like he'd always have like the menus around, and you'd be like, there was some sandwich shop at the garage space. Do you remember this? Oh, it was so good.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was. I know like Anthony Franco's. We always order from there in the new place, but I don't know if that
No, this
was.
is like when his
Yeah, in
parents'
his
garage
parents'
back in the day.
garage.
Yeah, that was. I love that. Those were like that was like the best time. But yeah, I mean that must have been so cool. Now it's where you had no pressure to record. It was on your own time. It was on your own dollar. Which now we're all at an age where we have jobs and we can pay for this shit like this. And but then like to sit around, that must have been awesome to record and then just like talk about the old days and then like also be creating some new stuff. That must have been like this new kind of magic that you guys were sitting in.
It was really cool, and I mean, you're right. I mean, like it was just a completely different feel. When we did the two records with Chris before, it was we were on a time schedule. The record had to be done like Minutes to Miles. We recorded in a month. I mean, that was recorded in a month basically. Same thing with Gave Me the Clap. Like we didn't have a lot of time. It was cool to like go to Chris and say, we're on a label, like they're taking care of everything basically, like for for these records, and opposed to like when before we were paying a lot, money to record and on our own dime basically. So that was a cool difference, being on a label and saying, yeah, everything's taken care of. Like let's do this. And then to go now doing this for ourselves basically is another kind of different feeling.
Yeah, because I mean it's also weird in a sense where you're doing it and go, we're gonna put this out into the ether, and it's just we're doing this really just creatively, and that's it. There's really no. I mean, I think a lot of bands when they do that after they haven't been together for so long, the expectation isn't okay, let's all suit up and get in a van and tour. Like, to me, if someone said, let's go tour, I'd be like, absolutely not.
Yeah, no way.
You fucking
No
kidding
thanks.
me? No way.
I know. And what's funny, like bands don't really tour that much. I mean, if they do, it's like maybe a couple weeks here and there. I mean, I don't really see it a lot. I mean, especially with all this COVID stuff going on, but like, I don't really see it like it used to be. Our first tour was like when we got signed was 3 months, and we went around the entire United States. It was like that kills you.
Yeah, I was actually so I was gonna say, and I'm on. My favorite thing I found recently is um, MySpace. It's you can still find it's not it's I don't know how this site is up. Like I don't know how the servers are being paid for or whatever, but the main thing you can find on old MySpace pages is photos. So you guys actually, and it's some of them are broken, the links are broken, but some of them you have these old photos of
Oh,
there's a
that's cool.
shit ton of you
Really?
guys. Yeah, there's like some where actually there's one on
I
here
gotta
you
see
might,
these.
yeah, there's one you might want to take down. It's like you guys are outside and some dude's like standing in the front with his like dick like tucked between his legs.
Brian Warner, I think that was.
Who is
Wow,
that?
that was an old friend of ours. We call it the three-step method. Yeah, it was. I can't believe that's up there. Wow, that's really old. Wow, that's crazy.
Wait, I'll
Unless
send
it's somebody else, I don't know. There are probably a few people that have done that over the years.
here. I'll send you a link in the chat. Yeah,
My God, let's see this.
yeah. You click on that. This is where I think a lot of bands are probably like, we got to go and take this shit down. But like if you go on it, there are other photos that aren't as
Really?
naked as that. There's
I
like,
clicked on it. Nothing happened. That's weird.
oh, that's wild. Let me see. Hold on, I'll send a screenshot in 1 second. But the cool thing is that there's photos of you guys playing at like Warped Tour and stuff. So there's just like a shit ton of people, and like that was always here. I just sent the photo. That was always like the dream, though.
Oh. So yeah, that was Grant from oh gosh. Now why am I blanking on the name of their band? We that was one of the Glory of This. That was the name of the band. We had such a great time with those guys. That was part of that 3 month tour we started off on. Them band called On the Last Day. We toured with that were on Victory. So like I said before, it was these bands were a little harder sound than we were, which was which I think really hurt us in the beginning, but we had a lot of fun. I mean, being on the road for that long.
I mean, you got to think about it though, because a lot of people in this podcast have talked about how cool it was that you go to a show and it'd be a hardcore band, a pop punk band, an emo band, a ska band, and it would make sense. And then later on, you kind of couldn't pull that off.
No, yeah, no way.
Like people just wanted, if there was a hardcore show, they just wanted that. They weren't like,
yes,
we're not gonna let anything else in.
You're right. Yeah, there was always an eclectic group of music. Like it didn't matter in the beginning time, like. Yeah, you're right. Like then it would just be like a hardcore show. Oh yeah, I'm going to a hardcore show, or I'm going to a pop punk show.
Did it kind of like when you guys would show up to these venues, or you were on this tour with this band that was a hardcore band, when you'd show up and set up for the night, were you kind of just like, I don't know, like a little bit deflated before you played? Like, I don't know how this is gonna go.
Some places, but honestly, like we had a lot of people there for us. Like a lot of those shows, like I would say the majority of people were there to see us, which was really cool. Also, every hardcore kid is a pop punk fan at heart.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I really believe that because we've had
good point.
We were really well received with a lot of the hardcore fans. I had people coming up to us like, I listened to your record, like guys are great, and you could tell they're not into our music. So that was another side to it, and we were headlining most of that leg of the tour. We started thinking like, wow, we got to get on some pop punk tours. Like this is like whatever. So our first tour we actually did and when we were on Trustkill, was like pop punk, was with Mayday Parade, which those guys are just huge now.
Are they still around?
Yeah, they're still playing. Like,
oh wow, I remember that name from back then.
Yeah, they're doing really good. I mean, Ryan still keeps up with them, like keeps in touch with them, and they still draw really well. I mean, they really did well for themselves. But that tour, we were headlining that tour. They were like opening up for us, which was bizarre because now it's like they've totally, overtaken everything. But that tour that started being kind of a good thing for us, like being on tour with a band that sounded a little bit like us,
So you were saying that you like got on, like you did like 2 weeks on Warped Tour and stuff, but that was around this time as well?
Yeah, so that was after it was 2000, 2006 or 7, I want to say. I think it was 2007 we did the Warped Tour. So we were on the Warped Tour comp the year before. I think it was 2006. And everybody thought we played that year, but we didn't. But we were just on the comp. That was awesome to be on that. And then the following year we got on Warped Tour. That was hands down the best tour I ever played in my life. I mean, it was extreme touring, as I say. So it was like you drive 7 to 8 hours to wherever you're going. Our first show was in Milwaukee. So we drove from New Jersey to Milwaukee. We got there. We had a manager at the time that he helped us get on the first half of Warped Tour. We showed up with all our gear and we go up to the office, we're supposed to check in. Sound manager goes, "You're not on this week of Warped Tour. Like, we don't have you on our list."
Oh my God.
So we're like, what? Like, we just drove from New Jersey to Milwaukee and you don't have us playing? Like, we have. So we call our manager and we're like, what the hell's going on? He's like, "Oh, Kevin Lyman told me like you guys are on and I have the email here and blah, blah, blah." So what ended up happening was we were only really supposed to play a week, and it was the second week, not the first week. So he had gone, I guess, to somebody else and got us on for the first week, but it was never really approved.
Oh my God.
Needless to say, we ended up firing him after all this situation happened. So basically, we called Josh from Trustkill. We're like, what do we do? That first show we didn't play in Milwaukee. They let us sell our merch.
Oh my
because
God.
they're like, you got to make some money. So like, can we sell our merch? They're like, yeah. So we sold our merch, but we didn't play. Josh had to call Kevin Lyman and talk to him about this whole situation. We were really good friends with Bayside too, with Anthony from Bayside, and which those guys are they're just great guys. Basically, Anthony marched into Warped Tour office and was like, these guys have to play. They came all the way from Jersey. Like, this is ridiculous. Like their manager screwed them over. It's not their fault. So I don't know who convinced who, but they let us play
Wow.
the rest of that first week.
Damn, dude.
I know. And we were like, wow, this is nuts. Like, and we had no clue. We were told to go, that it was confirmed and to go. We had people stand up for us, which was really cool.
Yeah.
We ended up playing 2 weeks and it was phenomenal. I mean, we played Canada, and we had people showing up and they would say, listen, I'm just here to see you guys and I'm leaving,
Wow.
you know,
That's
and
crazy.
you're playing with huge bands, Taking Back Sunday, Paramore, like, and people were just showing up to see us and leaving, which
Wow.
blew my mind. I
Yeah,
was like,
that's
why
awesome.
wouldn't you stay for the rest of the show? That was really cool. We met a lot of cool people and
Were you like hanging out in the back, like the bus area and stuff where you
yeah,
could play?
yeah. Like we'd see Newfound Glory and Paramore hanging out. I think Monkey came with us on that tour, and he knew the newfound guys. There was one night where we played cornhole. It was all the bands played cornhole. It was after the show, and whoever won got a free tattoo. That was that was the thing. So there was this guy, like a traveling tattoo artist, like he had his own little mobile home thing. It was me and Steve, and we were playing the guys from Tiger Army, I think. The guy who won was the drummer from MXPX,
Okay. Uh, uh,
which
or what's his name? Oh my God.
Yuri.
Yuri. That's it.
He's like basically the only one playing that doesn't have any tattoos.
Get the fuck out of here.
So he ended up winning, and I guess got his first tattoo on Warped Tour. I'm not sure what it was, but it was fun. Like the bands were just so great. Like everybody was really friendly, and like to be at that, like hanging out with these guys, like was insane.
Did you like pick up any tips from any of the bands at all about just, I don't know, like a stage show or a tour, like I don't, anything that you were like, oh, this actually was this cool little thing that this person told me that I utilized?
Well, I mean, one thing that was cool is like just hearing a band you look up to and a band that's like really really popular, like tell you like you're good, that like that was cool. We did a brief stint after Warped Tour with Bayside because we became friendly with them. So it was, and we played 2 shows with them. I mean, these shows were really cool. It was Bayside, the Loved Ones, I Am the Avalanche, and us opening.
Damn.
Oh, and the Sleeping too was on that.
Okay.
And that was one of the coolest moments. Was, I was a huge Movie Life fan, and Vinny from I Am the Avalanche, Movie Life, he came up to me, we were sound checking, and he was like, man, like you can really sing, like wow, like I'm like blown away by your voice. I'm like, that is so cool. Like somebody like I look up to like that telling me that, like wow, that was a cool moment. It was, Warped Tour was just so hard. Like you had to wake up at 7 a.m. and find your stage. You usually had to drag it across a field to where you were playing, and then
Drag
you'd
drag your
sit.
equipment.
Yeah, like because there was no other way to get it. Like you were playing in the middle of fields.
Oh God.
So it was like you bring all your stuff to the stage, and then it was hot as balls. Like you'd be sitting in the heat all day long, selling merch, signing stuff for people. Like I remember sitting there with just ice on my neck, and just, I mean, the heat was unbearable.
Yeah.
And then you got to get up and play, and then you got to like sell stuff afterwards, and then you're partying all night. Then you got to drive 7 hours to the next place. So this was every day for 2 weeks.
Wow.
It was awesome, but it was so exhausting. Like I think back, like wow, I can't believe we did that.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's like I always hear about that, like the drives when you're in like the Midwest or the West Coast part of Warped Tour. It seems like the East Coast is a little bit shorter distance because everything in the East Coast is a lot more compact, I think.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Well,
Yeah,
it
I mean
is.
everything's kind of close, like
Yeah, and everything's so much more spread out in the Midwest and the West, but you would play. So if you had to drag all your shit to the middle of a field, that means that when you were done, you had to let it sit there until the whole day was done then, right?
basically, yeah. And then yeah, I forgot about that part and bringing it back to the van and putting everything back in, afterwards.
Oh my God.
It was wild, but so worth it. I mean, we sold so many records like those 2 weeks and just met so many cool people and it was just so much fun. Best tour we ever did. I mean, hands down.
So did Trustkill like hold up their part as being because you get signed to a label, you just think like you don't really know what goes into that, but you kind of just sell yourself on, oh good, it's like it's Trustkill or it's Fat Records or it's this, like, oh it's a label, but then you don't really have, it's like what does that mean? You're like, oh I don't really know, but you have expectations, like whatever the expectations you had, did they meet them for you?
Um, I would say we were a little let down. I mean, foremost, like I appreciate everything they did for us. We would have never had a record out in stores. We know, I mean, we would have, but they really gave us an awesome opportunity. But we wanted more. We felt like our sound could have gone a lot further. We were promised a lot of things that never happened, which was disappointing. But also there was a lot of good things, like they put our song, MTV licensed both of our records, and we were like on the background of shows and stuff, and like things like that were really cool, like were starting to happen. But the first record was really pushed by them, and then the second one was kind of like they just kind of dropped the ball, and weren't promoting us at all really. The tours it was impossible for us to get any good tours. At the end of the day, we requested to be dropped because we felt like we could jump to a different label and do better, which never really happened. But
Well, at this point too, like how old are you? Because 2008 is when you put out the last one.
yeah, so I was like 20. I think I was like 23 when our first record, and then so I was like in my mid 20s, and we didn't know anything. They gave us a contract, we signed it. We had two lawyers tell us not to sign it, which
You never
you
listen
should
to.
probably listen to them.
Yeah, no one cares what the lawyers have to say. Like they're the ones who study this shit, and you're like, I want to live the dream. Fuck you.
Exactly. And that's what we were like, listen, like we don't know if we're ever going to get an opportunity like this again. That's why we took it. And I don't regret it. We could say we did a lot of things, from this opportunity, but we felt like it could have been better. Trustkill ended up going bankrupt shortly after we were dropped.
I heard about that.
Yeah. So I think it was a lot of money issues for them. And, Josh had good intentions with us. And I think it just, first of all, like it was a different genre that they didn't really understand. I mean, they're hardcore bands. They did really well off with Trustkill, Yeah. And it kind of happened to all the bands, like Roses Are Red, those guys, Bedlight, like same deal.
It's a weird thing because I'm thinking about if you're a record label, like how many people worked for Trustkill?
Well, it was him, and then he had like a couple assistants. Like it wasn't really big. It was out of his basement,
Yeah.
so he ran it like he didn't run it like like a major label. It was out of his basement. He had all the merch down there and everything, and he was really personable. Like we sat down and talk, and like and he was a fan. Like he loved our music, and which was cool.
Yeah, I think where a lot of labels screw themselves is their intentions are there, but once you get into the thick of it, especially when you have a certain amount of bands, like you really can't pay that. There's only so many hours in the day, and it's like having a band is like having a child. They're so needy, and they're like, we need help with this, or we need money with this, and you're looking at if you have all the cards laid on the table and all the cards represent your bands, there's only so much you can put into a certain band where I think where labels screw themselves, they should probably just keep it very small stack and they should stay in that genre and not leave it because the more niche you are, the better off you're going to be. More
Totally.
focused. So I could see where that would screw them. And as a band, you're disappointed because you're like told you're offered the world and it doesn't come through, and you're just like, all right, well, that we signed over our trust to you and you didn't show up, so now we're going to be a little bit pissed.
Exactly. You see that with a lot of labels, like Drive Through, and like these labels that had really great bands and just couldn't handle it.
Yeah, I think some labels though had weird intentions. Not to like shit on Drive Through or anything, but I mean, like,
Everyone does.
yeah, I mean, and
It's
I'd
okay.
say like, I mean, I know like Chris from Blanemire and Day at the Fair, like he'll say nothing but good things about Richard and Stephanie because they were always like really good to them. But I think some labels got a bit too over their heads about stuff, and I think you can't blame someone for putting their vision out into the world because the world is really I'm like blame the audience, not the thing that makes it, because if everyone consumes it, that's why it keeps going. So, but like with Drive Through, I think that they had one vision, but they also created this, I don't know, this like vision. They put it out there, but they kept, I don't know, they just, yeah, I can see why that label fucking failed. So it's what I'm gonna say.
Well, and you have labels too that sign bands for like 8 albums.
Yeah,
You
like what?
know,
That is
like
just insanity.
like Victory is a big label, like because we toured with this band Driver's Side Impact that was on Victory, and they had like an 8 album deal with Victory, and
Who the fuck is gonna make that many records? I mean,
and bands sign it because they feel, like kind of how we felt, like we're never gonna get this opportunity again. We have to do it. And that basically is just they're just throwing darts. They're like just signing these bands to these huge contracts, and like if it sticks, it sticks. If it doesn't, then it's a write off.
but I mean, you got to think about it though. Like, Fat Records is still around, Asian Man's still around, and they're a one record deal, or like Asian Man's a handshake. Fat Records is you got one record and then you could do whatever you want, and they're still around. Like, you think that someone would have paid attention to that eventually, like at some point, and saw that this is working for them, and you just have to, if you build that trust, it's sometimes it might bite you in the ass. I know, like with Fat Records with Lawrence Arms, they were on Fat, and then they went to Epitaph, and Fat Mike was a little like little salty about that from what I've heard from listening to Brennan's podcast. Yeah, they like it skewed the relationship for a while, but I mean that's what you let it to be. But it's still like as a label, you're still around, and the bands are happier and they're taken care of. You'd think.
Oh yeah, that's what you want. And I think it has to be set up right. Like for us, it was like, this band, we got this band, like, and now what? Like, tours should have been set up for us. Like, they should have pushed hard for us to get certain manager in place, people booking our tours, publicists, like, and none of that was really done. Like, and again, our mentality is, well, we have to do it. So we started doing things on our own again. And actually, to tell you the truth, the things we did on our own was gaining more fans and things than what the label was doing for us.
Like what were you doing differently?
Like on our own time, like we hired our own publicist.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and she was awesome. Like she started getting us. She booked us like Good Morning America in
What?
Texas, and the tour got canceled, but we were on tour through Texas, and we had to cancel it. But she got us Good Morning America. I think it was Fox, one of those good morning shows. But then, and she got us on Fearless Music TV. We did that, which used to be on like after Mad TV, 11:30 Saturday nights, where
Really?
they'd have like live. Yeah, it would be like live bands playing. That was really cool. We did that. She got us like really good interviews with people, and then basically, they were supposed to pay. I paid the first month. They were supposed to pay the second month, and they basically fired her the second month. So stuff that was starting to happen was like, and then they really didn't hold up their end of the deal, with that. Things with music videos. We did our music video with for Popular, which we filmed in our old high school that we went to, and we rented out the high school for a weekend. And we were like, playing on the desks and stuff. We had a lot of friends and stuff in the video. And kind of a funny story is who directed that video was Jason Marsden, who was on Full House. If you ever watch Full House,
Yeah.
he played Nelson, DJ's rich boyfriend.
I don't. Wait, is this like Fuller House or Full
No,
House?
the original Full House.
Her
So
rich
he was
boyfriend.
like her rich boyfriend. It was kind of towards the end of Full House, like the last few seasons. And he was also on Boy Meets World. He was on a lot of stuff. He did a lot of things.
I have to look this up. I'm Team Steve, so.
So
Oh
us,
my God, that guy?
yes, yeah, yeah. He is. Let me tell you, he's a great guy. He's awesome. He was a fan of us, of our music, and my brother, who he's a big, 90s Full House fan, like we all are. He ended up talking to him. I don't on Facebook or Instagram, I forget. He was like, "Hey, you want to direct our next music video?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'd love to." So we flew him out from California. We stayed, here for a few days, and he was awesome. And video came out great, and we're still friends till today. Like we still talk, and
Wait a minute, didn't he host The Soup?
I don't think no, he looks like him though.
Oh, he looks like Hal
Looks
Sparks.
like Hal Sparks. He's also the
Okay.
voice. He does the voice for the cat in Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, okay.
The Goofy movie.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
in that too.
Oh my God, that's
Uh,
crazy.
yeah, so that was really cool. Like, because we all knew him from all these shows and stuff, and he was so down to earth, like great guy. But that whole thing, like, we had to front the money for all that. That wasn't in our budget.
Were you guys actually living off the band for a while?
No, never.
Nope, nope, never made a dime. Not even.
Never. And we were
Damn.
all, yeah. And that's kind of what kind of saw the end for us. It was, I think we were all burnt out from all the touring and just the frustration from the label, and we just kind of stopped playing. Like we never really said we broke up. We just kind of didn't want to. We just didn't play anymore. That was it. After that second record, we didn't really do much.
Well, like, so, and one thing I wanted to ask too is like when you came up to Trustkill and you're like, hey, we got the name of the record, it's this. Were they just like, what?
For Gave Me the Clap.
Yeah.
Yeah, they loved it actually. Josh loved that name, and because we were just we'd always every time we play a show we always get a lot of people clapping, and that was like our thing. Like we always had people clapping at every song, and I forget who came. We were in the studio with Chris, and we came up with it, and we're like, how about Crash Romeo Gave Me the Clap? And we're like, wow, that's kind of good actually. And we presented it to them, and they loved it. And that record was fun to do, and I love how the layout came out for that. We had the cheerleaders, the punk rock cheerleaders, in there on the front of the album, and it was fun. But I wish we could have done a third record. And when I look back, we probably shouldn't have been asked to be dropped because they owed us that last record.
What do you think it would have happened though if you and I'll wrap this up soon, but like I mean, at that point, there's always so much energy left in the energy bar of where you are in your band, and sometimes you're just when bands break up, it's like you're at zero, or like one person's at zero and some other people are like maybe a little bit more full, but the meter is just like it's a lot lower in some aspect. And if you would have given them the ability to pay for that third record, what do you think would have happened?
Um, I think you're kind of right. I think we were kind of deflated at that point and burnt out. I don't know. I mean, it could have gone either way. I don't think, from what they were showing us with the second record, I don't think they would have done anything for us. Maybe it could have gotten us on another label at that point, but I think ultimately we were just burnt out. Can't really explain it. Like it was just for me, I just didn't want to play anymore. It was weird.
No, I totally get it. I mean, that's pretty much what happens is like you just do it for so long, and then I think something just tells you internally like, all right, you're done. Do something different.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, oh, maybe I need to get a job. It sucks. Like a real job that pays my bills and stuff.
Were
And
you still living at home at this point?
Yeah, yeah, I was still living at home, and then I got married. I got married shortly after that, like a year after,
Oh wow.
and then the kids started coming, and so and then so that's what's kind of cool. Like that we, it was cool to go back in the studio and kind of do this third record, that never was, so that's kind of how we feel about it. Like this is what it, would have been, or even better, that time has passed, and now we have these great songs to record.
So like, are any? I think you might have said in the beginning, but are any of these songs that you recorded, were some of them like in the works back when you guys broke up?
A few of them, yeah, a few of them I had were in the works, and but the majority of it was all stuff I wrote leading up to us going in. Like I'd write them in the house, and I'd record them, and I'd send them to Ryan and Steve, and be like, what do you think? And they'd be like, oh, it's awesome. So like, that or it wasn't good, so we kind of, and then me and Steve would get together and write some lyrics, and we basically didn't practice them at all. Like we just went in the studio and recorded them.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like nothing was rehearsed at all. Little Steve was not a part of this last record. He's got a lot going on. He's got, I don't know, like 4 kids now, 3 kids.
Yeah, I remember that. Didn't he get married while you guys were a band or something?
Yes, he did. Yeah. We reached out to him, but he's got a lot going on. So
Is he doing like real estate now or something? Or
I don't know. I'm not really sure. I haven't really talked to him much. Just, when I asked him to be a part of this, and that was the last time I talked to him. He's always a part of this band, even if not on the record, like whatever happens with it, But so I ended up doing the bass tracks on the album, which was a lot of fun for me.
That's cool.
Yeah, we'll see. It was a lot of fun. It came out great. So we still don't know what is going to happen with it. We're worst comes to worst, we release it ourselves. So that's our plan.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to pay for some server space and get it on Spotify. Basically.
Exactly.
That's the way you got to do it. Well, actually, I mean, you already have. I mean, your stuff's on Spotify.
On Spotify, yeah.
Is that through you guys, or is that through someone else?
Well, I guess when we were on Trustkill, they set all that up for us. But we actually spoke to them recently, and they said, Spotify, they said we could change everything and go back in and put new pictures up and new music, so we could still keep it the way it is.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Definitely add a background photo to that header image there.
Yeah, we're in the process of doing new photos and everything. So, Instagram, we'll be posting stuff on Instagram and all that, updates, what we're doing.
Do you guys actually have an Instagram?
Yeah. Yep.
Let me see this. Oh yeah, you do. Okay. Yeah. Oh wow. I'm gonna follow you. Yeah. I don't follow any accounts with my podcast one, just because it's like I want to be that asshole that just follows my own shit.
Right.
I just followed my comic. That's cool, man.
Yeah, man.
All right, dude. Well, I'll wrap this up. Before I last the 2 questions, is there any story you've always wanted to tell that you never got a chance to?
Let's see. That's a good one.
That could be incriminating or non-incriminating.
Oh my gosh! I was thinking about this before, about a good story. Oh man, now I'm drawing a blank on that. I have to think. What's the other question? I'll think about this one.
I mean, that's really, before I ask you to plug anything, like then I kind of like cap it off. I don't know. Was any like funny tour story or like recording story, or I don't know, man. This is your one chance, dude.
I'm really thinking here. There's got to be something good.
I mean, were you guys like, I don't know, like, were you guys big partiers on the road, or like drinkers?
Yeah.
Like that? Yeah.
Well, okay. One funny story I have. I'll throw one out there. We were playing, I believe, in Canada. I think it was on Warped Tour, actually. It was in Quebec. So, in Quebec, there's mostly everything's in French, basically. And we were on our way leaving the show. We were trying to follow directions out of the place. We ended up on a racetrack in Quebec.
What?
Like a legit racetrack. So imagine this 18 passenger van and trailer
What?
going around this like NASCAR racetrack. And we can't read any of the signs because nobody speaks French or reads French. And we see this other car going around the racetrack, like this random car. And we stop. And we're like, "Do you know how to get out of here?" Like we literally were driving around this thing for like 20 minutes. Like, "Do you know how to get out of here?" And they're like, "We don't understand what you're saying." They were French, so they didn't understand what we were saying. So we're like, "What the hell?" Keep driving around. Finally, we find our way out, and we're all like, "What the heck was that about?" Like, how do we randomly just wind up on a racetrack in Canada?
Wait, is this like a NASCAR track where it's literally like a wall?
Yes. Yes. And it was like all of a sudden we're just like on this track. It was so weird. And then little Steve's puking. We had to pull over. He's puking. He's in his underwear from drinking too much. A lot of those stories we have. But that was a funny thing. We're like, and to this day, we're like, "Do you remember that?" Like Twilight Zone.
That's hilarious. It's like European Vacation where they're just like
Exactly.
stuck in the roundabout. It's like, hey kids, Big Ben, Parliament.
Yeah, right.
Oh fuck. Well, that's a great way to end it before I end it. All right. So last two questions. One, what would you like to plug? It could be about you. It could be about someone else. It could be about both.
Just everybody keep an eye on the Instagram. That's where we're going to post most of the updates on the new record. That's it basically. I mean, until we have further, things of what we're doing, but everything up there on the Crash Romeo Instagram, that's where all the updates will be.
Yeah. And what's this? Oh wow. I actually just saw real quickly. You guys got. So the Warped Tour comp you were on, you talked about before, it sold 500,000 copies. So
Yes,
you got a
yeah.
gold
So
record.
I got a gold record finally, and I didn't even know until Chris Badami told me, because he has one, because he has a lot of bands on there. He's like, "Don't you know? Like, you get one too." I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "Okay." But you have to contact them and stuff, so you have to do like some things to get it. But yeah, that was really cool. I mean, just to have that, to be a part of that was wow.
That's really cool. Yeah, and I'd said that someone else said they got a gold record, and I asked because someone posted in the NJPP group that you have to pay for it, but someone
Yeah,
said that you don't.
you do.
You
You do.
do?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, because you have to pick which design you want. It's a whole big thing. They have to process it. So yeah, you have to pay. You have to pay for those.
Wow.
So, and I was like, whatever. It's cool to have. I'll pay whatever. It wasn't much.
Yeah, someone said it was like, yeah, you don't have to say how much it was, but someone was like, yeah, you got to pay for it. It's a lot of money. I was like, that seems weird. But the other person I talked to said that they didn't. So
Yeah.
that's weird. Huh.
Yeah.
All right. Well, all right. Last question. What scene ethics do you hold on to this day?
I think it's just a lot of the hard work that we put in, like that has stuck with us through everything. Signing to a label is that backbone of like, we have to bust our ass to like get our name out there. If someone else doesn't do it, like we have that ability. And I think the scene taught us that, like promoting ourselves, just doing everything you can to get where you want,